Big LEZ'S League, an all rugby league experience. Hello, welcome back to Big LEZ'S League. Let's talk about your Thursday. That was the Melbourne Storm taking on the Brisbane Broncos. What about this game? 50-12. Now, I know that a lot of people were expecting the Broncos to get beaten here. I think everyone was expecting the Broncos to get beaten here, but 50-12 in the Broncos' last game of the season, where you'd think they'd be trying to make a statement, trying to prove that they are still a quality football side, prove that they, can play some good football towards the back end of the season when they have struggled for most of the year, particularly over the past few weeks. You'd think we'd get a better statement from them to end the year. For them to go down 50-12 in their last game of the season, it just pretty much sums up where the Broncos are at right now. Obviously, it is a bit tough to say that without Walsh, Mam, Haas. When you take all of the best players out of your side, it does make it a lot harder for a team like that to win. And look, they still had Renault, they still had Paddy Carrigan, who got through a ton of work himself, but yeah, just really disappointing performance, unfortunately. And the Melbourne Storm, off the back of Jerome Hughes, 3 tries, off the back of Will Warbrick, 3 tries as well. They get the job done. Jerome Hughes, he's in a league of his own at the moment. He has to be the player of the year, just off the back of what he's done over the past few weeks. But 3 tries, he was just in a league of his own. He ran for 200 metres or so, just under 200 metres, 151 metres there. He had 6 tackle busts, 3 line breaks, 4 line break assists, and 2 try assists in there as well. 11 tackles, 273 kicking metres. He was unbelievable in this game. Just insane. He just had a hand in absolutely everything, especially down that right-hand side attack. They were just humming. Nick Meaney, it's the best game I've seen from him all year. He's had some pretty decent games of football. His goal kicking has been great, but it's the best game of football that I've seen from Nick Meaney in regards to his attack all season. 123 metres off 9 runs, had a line break assist, a try assist, 3 tackle busts. But defensively as well, Nick Meaney has just really worked on his defence in the centres there, playing a new position this year. Defensively has been very, very strong. They also made a big risk in bringing back Xavier Coates onto that left-hand side as well. He played quite well, only played 52 minutes. They sort of rested him after the first 52, but he came in, ran for 121 metres, 4 tackle busts, and a line break in there as well. I thought that he was quite good. The one I'm impressed with, though, is in 56 minutes, Sua Fa'alongo, 208 metres, 15 runs, line break assist, line break, 2 try assists, tackle bust, 2 tackles made out there, 3 kick defusals. That is all in 56 minutes of football. Absolutely insane. He was on track to have a pretty big game there. Sua Fa'alongo. Munster as well with his running game, 12 runs, 107 metres, 3 tackle busts, 21 tackles. I thought that he was great. And he just played really well off the back of what Jerome Hughes was sort of creating. We already spoke about Hughes already, just insane performance. Nelson through the middle there, played big minutes, 39 minutes there, pretty decent minutes. 124 run metres, 3 tackle busts. Josh King as well in the short, the 40-minute stint that he had, I thought was great. His first stint was unreal. Eli Katoa, how much has he improved this season? 70 minutes, 162 metres, 6 tackle busts. Obviously, scored a try in there as well. He was just electric, especially up in the air. He is so, so dangerous. And just how far he's come since he's been at the Warriors. That's only 2 years ago. The work that he's been able to do over the past 2 years, particularly this season, just coming into his own really well. He has had a terrific, terrific season, Eli Katoa. I tell you what, talking about people that have just gone into a league of their own and had a big year, Trent Liero. Last year, he was a back rower that we sort of didn't know if his spot had been secured going into this year. We didn't know if he was going to have a spot in this side going into this season with Sean Bloor coming into the team. Sean Bloor obviously started the year off the bench. Liero sort of started on the edge and then transitioned into the middle. In fact, I think his first game, Liero, was in the middle of the field, and we sort of were scratching our heads a bit going, is this the right move for Melbourne? What is Craig Bellamy doing here with this move? Is this going to work? And for the first few games, it didn't, particularly in the trials. Didn't really impress through the middle of the field, but it sort of took a few games for us to get used to that idea of Trent Liero through the middle. And particularly over the past 4 weeks, he has absolutely killed it through the middle. And I think the the sort of start of that period was against South Sydney. That was a huge performance for himself, getting a lot of go forward through the middle, being a really good link man as well there at 13. I think that's something that's been a little bit underrated in his game over the past few weeks, is just his ability to be that link man through the middle. He's had some really solid weeks of football, Trent Liero, and very impressed with his performance. He played 56 minutes, had 113 run meters, tackle bust in there, 24 tackles. I thought he was really, really solid. Tyron Wishart obviously had to come into the game at fullback, so we didn't really get to see that flashy Tyron Wishart, coming in that middle role and just breaking the game open. He had to come on and play a bit of fullback, and I thought he did quite well when Suafolongo came off the field. Tuika Gamitha, I thought was great off the bench, had a really solid stint. Alec McDonald as well, running very, very hard lines. Lazarus Falepu didn't get too many minutes, 28 minutes there, but I thought he looked quite good coming onto the field as well. We talked about Xavier Coates, the risk of bringing him back in for Grant Anderson. I thought that was a huge call. Particularly with how good Grant Anderson's been. As I said in the preview, I thought it was going to be very hard to take Grant Anderson out of this side, but they did it with ease, and obviously it worked out quite well for them, other than the back end of that game, obviously, when Xavier Coates had to come off the field for a little bit of a stint. Would have been worthwhile maybe having Grant Anderson staying on the bench for a little bit there, but obviously for Melbourne even to do what they did against the Broncos, and by 60 minutes in, they obviously lost their fullback and one of their wingers, and they obviously made it work. For them to do that is unreal. It was a great performance by Melbourne. I think their league is ahead of everyone else, and I think that includes Penrith. I honestly think that Melbourne are leagues ahead of Penrith at the moment. I think that Melbourne are definitely the premiership favourites. I honestly would almost guarantee them to win the grand final this year. I think that, as I said, they are leagues ahead of Penrith at the moment, and I think that even in the games where Nathan Cleary's been in the side, and obviously they've had those late comebacks, I honestly think that Melbourne, the footy that they've put together this season, and particularly over the past few weeks, has been a lot better than what we've seen from Penrith in those tight games where they come back at the death. And that worries me a little bit for Penrith as well, because if they go up against Melbourne in the final to get into the grand final, or depending on how the draw works, and obviously, they are trying to come back in the death, but Melbourne put on too many points. It could lose, the Penrith Panthers a preliminary final, and it could lose in the grand final as well, if that's the grand final that we do see, depending on, as I said, how the draw works. But, look, I think, as I said, Melbourne are leagues ahead at the moment. I think they're on their own league now. I think that they are favourites to win the comp. I'd almost guarantee them to win the comp. A huge performance here. To do this back-to-back weeks against the Dolphins and then against the Broncos, I think is enormous. As for the Broncos, look, some positives. Martin Tapau off the bench was just an absolute force. 26 minutes, 148 metres, 13 runs, 3 tackle busts. I thought he did a lot of great work off the bench. So did Kobe Hetherington. 54 minutes. He obviously came on quite early. 111 metres, 12 runs. Just insane performance. 29 tackles there as well. Defensively, very strong. Paddy Carrigan's always going to get over 100 metres. This is just what he does. 132 metres, 15 runs, 2 tackle busts. Just insane. 27 tackles. And then Jordan Ricky as well. I thought had some nice runs there on the edge. I thought Arthur's looked okay coming out of his end. The wingers got kept to under 100 metres, which credit to the Melbourne Storm defence. Really did well in trapping the wingers in their own end and making the Broncos work out of their own end as well. I thought that Dean Mariner had some nice moments. 11 runs, 125 metres, 38 post-contact, 2 tackle busts, 15 tackles. Thought he looked a lot better. And look, I think a bit of a concern there for Dean Mariner was his defence in the centres. I thought he defended very well. I thought he was one of the better defensive players for the Broncos too. I thought that Tristan Saylor had some nice moments. It's his last game as a Brisbane Bronco before he goes over to the Super League as well. So I thought it was a great way to sort of end his NRL career temporarily. 20 runs, 119 metres, 2 tackle busts, 11 tackles. I thought he was okay there at fullback. I thought he did a pretty decent job. Reno, he has struggled a little bit over the past 2 to 3 weeks. I think that's fair to say. I think he has struggled a little bit over the past 2 to 3 weeks, just, getting a hold on games and A little bit of that goes onto the forwards as well. I mean, Fletcher Baker, he only ran for 40 metres off 6 runs in 30 minutes of footy. Corey Jensen, I thought he did some nice work, 85 metres, but only had the 9 runs as well. I mean, a lot of the work was coming from Paddy Carrigan there, just coming out of their own end. He was taking plenty of runs, just trying to get his team out of their own end. And when you're not getting too much momentum there through the middle, it is hard for your halves to do anything. But, yeah, look, I mean, it was a very tough night for me for Adam Reynolds. 449 kicking metres. He definitely kicked a lot of metres. But, yeah, look, I mean, I just think directional-wise, he did have a bit of a tough night. And I think Josh Rogers was the same, I think. It was just very hard for these two to do anything, really, with where the Broncos were and, the fact that they just couldn't get out of their own end. It was hard for Reno Rogers to make something of the game, but I think it has been a tough few weeks for Adam Reynolds. I really do. I think that the two tries that the Broncos scored were good. Josh Rogers just taking the game into his own hands and scoring that individual try was nice in the 30th minute. Jesse Arthur's as well. It was good for them to get one on the board like that, just one of their set pieces coming off, but a lot of those set pieces didn't. They ended up completing still at 81%, which isn't too bad. Melbourne just had a lot more of the ball, 54% of the ball off the back of, the penalties. The penalties for me was big. Obviously Melbourne made a lot more errors, 13 errors to 7, but 5 penalties to 2. Melbourne only gave 2 penalties away in this game. Yeah, and that was obviously a big part as to why Melbourne won the game. And another thing as well, the defence. We talked about Nick Meaney and how he's improved defensively there on that edge. The whole side, only 17 missed tackles. 17 missed tackles, 45 for the Brisbane Broncos. Defensively, they fell apart a little bit. And look, that's what won Melbourne the game. And for them to win like this, only completing at 76%, I think is a big testament to Melbourne and how far ahead they are to everyone else at the moment as well. Big win by Melbourne. Not too much else to add on to that. As for the Brisbane Broncos, a tough way to end the year, but hopefully when they get a few more of their guys back next year, they can be a force and get close to a grand final again.
That's full time. See you in the next one.